Welcome to Unforbidden Truth. I'm Andrew. Today I'll be having a conversation with film directors Eli Kooris, Joshua Shaffer, and infamous DB Cooper copycat, Martin McNally. This conversation will be based around a new documentary that was recently released called American Skyjacker. On June 23rd, 1972, Martin McNally, an unemployed service station attendant, hijacked an American Airlines 727 using a submachine gun. The flight was traveling from St. Louis, Missouri to Tulsa, Oklahoma, when McNally ordered it to divert east toward Indiana. After demanding and receiving a $500,000 ransom, he prepared to leave the aircraft by parachute. As the 727 was getting ready for takeoff, following the ransom exchange, an unexpected incident occurred. A local man, David J. Hanley, drove his Cadillac onto the runway and rammed the jet at speeds reaching 80 miles per hour. Hanley was seriously injured, and the collision rendered the aircraft unusable. Because of this, McNally was forced to transfer to a second 727 to continue his escape. When McNally finally jumped from the plane, he lost the ransom money during the exit, but managed to land safely near Peru, Indiana. His freedom was short-lived. However, he was located and arrested a few days later in a Detroit suburb. In a 2020 podcast interview, McNally acknowledged that this hijacking had been inspired by the infamous DB Cooper. The documentary, American Skyjacker, is available to rent and/or purchase on Vimeo and Apple TV. Here's my conversation with film directors Eli Kooris, Joshua Shaffer, and Martin McNally. So Joshua and Eli, what inspired you to capture the story of Martin McNally on the big screen?
So we'd originally read an article by Danny Wicentowski in the Riverfront Times, which is alt weekly that's published in St. Louis or was published in St. Louis, doesn't really exist anymore. And it completely blew us away. It was an incredible story. So we called Danny and asked him, if he'd like to work with us and trying to adapt it into a film. And so we were in the process of writing the script and setting up meetings and trying to arrange financing, which takes forever. And then Danny was like, Martin McNally's still alive and he's in St. Louis. He's alive and well, and he'd like to talk to you if you'd be interested in talking to him. And so we connected with him. And then in 2019, we went out and met Mac and spent 3 or 4 days interviewing him. Um, and we got much of the interview that you see in the film. And that started us down the road of initially trying to sell it as a documentary. And then we went to Imperative Entertainment and they said, we're setting up a podcast division. How about you make a podcast? And it gave us all the freedom to tell the whole story in about 6.5 hours over 10 episodes. And then after a couple of years of success with the podcast, we came back to making it as a documentary.
Yeah, and that's a lot of that credit is due to Martin and the outstanding interview that he gave us. Had he not been so open about his story, I'm not sure that it would have translated to the screen as well as it did. And so, it was definitely an asset having the man himself tell us the story.
He's a fantastic storyteller.
It's true.
Okay, awesome. Thank you guys for that intro. Now to talk to the man of the hour, Martin McNally. So Martin, what's one detail that the film captures visually that you think a written article could never land?
In the apartment in St. Louis. The camera crew was in there. I was sitting on the couch, and my cat jumped up on the window and was looking outside. He was on the ledge. And I said, he understands voice commands. And I said, Spot, turn around and show your face. Immediately, my cat turned around and showed her face, and then jumped down. And that's the best part of the film that I really, really like, because that's remarkable. But I enjoyed the entire film. It's a hell of a documentary, true life, true fact, and it was done very well. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. It covered everything in 91 minutes, and I think it's going to do very well.
And is there anything that you guys insisted that you absolutely could not cut from the film?
No,
I
I mean,
mean,
Go ahead, Josh. Sorry.
What's in the film is all the stuff that we thought was must have in the film. And I think that, the hardest thing was figuring out what we had to lose, because there was so much good content. Mac's story is so rich. There's so many avenues that we could have gone down that we did in the podcast that we didn't have time to go down in the feature doc. And so I would invite anybody who loves the documentary to go and check out the podcast, because there is so much more to the story.
Yeah, there's some amazing stuff we had to, as they say, you have to kill the little darlings. And Mac and Trapnell actually embarked on a presidential campaign from prison, which Mac says was one of his biggest regrets. Was that well, I'll let him tell it. I shouldn't even say it. You're back on.
I'm back on.
Sounds much better. So Mac, what was the story of you guys trying to run for president?
Yeah, in 1978, we were put in the control unit in July, and in September, Trapnell came to me. We were cells apart in the control unit, and he came to me one morning and he says, "I'm thinking about running for president." I said, "What? You got to be kidding me." He said, "No, I'm serious. I'm thinking about running for president." He said, "Can I do it?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. I don't know the law on this. I'll pull out my law books and come back tomorrow, and I'll tell you if you can run for president and take over the office and get me out of prison." And the next morning, he came over there to my cell, and after I reviewed all my law books, constitutional law books, and so forth, I said, "Trap, you can run. You can run for president and be elected. Are you serious about this?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Oh, okay, let's begin. Write the Federal Election Commission and tell them you want the paperwork, the applications to submit for being a candidate." So that's what he did. Within 2 weeks, we had the paperwork there, and we had to decide what we're going to call our political party. And we came up with National Christian Democratic Party. National Christian Democratic Party. So we filed all that, and we started to prepare press releases. We had them going all over the country. I mean, all over to the news media and everything. And they were covering this. If you lived in that era, you remember all of these news spots that were coming out in the paper, on the radio, everything. And eventually, in March of 1979, now we'd been operating this since October of 1978. And going up to March of 1979, the director of the Bureau of Prisons issued a press release, and he said that effective in June, federal prisoners will no longer have free postage because we can't have prisoners running for elective office. Now, that was terrible. When he did that, Carlson did that, everybody went from, "Hey, rah, 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 these prisoners are in the control unit running a presidential campaign and everything," to, "We ought to kill these son of a bitches. Now we don't have free postage." Now, if you look at this, the reason this is my biggest regret, if you look at this, from 1979 June up until today, currently, federal prisoners have paid nearly $300 million because of my stupid blunders presidential campaign. If I had been able to foresee this reaction of the Bureau of Prisons and the government, I would have killed the idea right at the outset. But I didn't see it, the magnitude of it. Senator Paul Simon wrote me a letter, and he said, "You can't do this. You can't, Senator Paul Simon. You can't do this stuff." And I wrote Mr. Senator Simon. I says, Senator Simon, you need to check the law because we can run and we are running a presidential campaign. And if he gets the votes, we'll go into the White House and he's going to pardon a lot of these people who are in prison. So that was terrible.
So that was one of the things we could not put in the film, unfortunately.
But it's in the podcast.
But it's in the podcast, and it's a fun little bit. Anyway, sorry, Andrew. Go ahead.
Oh no, that's okay. Thank you for that amazing story. That's awesome. Was the jump ever fun, or was it 100% terror for you?
It was fun, no question about it. There was no terror. I was not afraid. I was not scared. I knew that if we need to go back to when I ordered the parachutes. I had ordered 5 parachutes and 2 harnesses. 5 parachutes, 2 harnesses. When they brought the parachutes, they only had reserve chutes and the front packs. And I said, "Where is the backpacks?" And the guy said, "You didn't order them." So I looked at my watch, and I didn't have time to tell him to get the backpacks because that would have taken at least an hour to 2 hours. So I said, "Yeah, right. You're trying to kill me. Get the hell off this plane." So I bailed out with the reserve chute. Like I say, I wasn't scared. I knew that if this reserve chute, didn't operate correctly, if it blew out, I would land terminal velocity 130 miles an hour hitting the ground, so it would be all over. So I went for it, and it turned out okay. I hit hard on the ground when I did hit. Smashed my head. My feet hit first, my butt hit, and then my head hit the back of my head. And it was bad. I jumped up, and I knew I had to go somewhere and lay down because I couldn't do anything. And that's what I did. I pulled in a parachute. I climbed over 2 barbed wire fences. That was close. If I'd hit them, it would have tore me up. But I went over 2 barbed wire fences, went into the trees, and laid the chute down and went to sleep. An hour later, I woke up and it was starting to get light. So I moved the chute into the trees more, and I laid it under under a tree trunk, put leaves over it, and went to sleep. I woke up at about 12 noon, listening to helicopter rotors going overhead, and the shadow of the of the rotors actually went right over me. I said, "Damn, they're close. I hope they don't see the shovel that I had tossed out about at 1,000 feet." And the helicopter went on its way. I went back to sleep. Covered up in the parachute. And about probably 6:30, 7 o'clock, somewhere around there, I woke up, cleaned off my shoes and pants and everything, and got out on the street and looked at the cars going by, license plates, Indiana, Indiana, Indiana. 5 cars went by, and I said, "Well, I'm in Indiana. Don't know where, but I got try to get out of here. So that was on a secondary road. It was gravel. So I walked out onto an asphalt road, which is more of a main road, and I started hitchhiking. And chief of police stopped right near me. I didn't know he was the chief of police, but he pulled up in his personal car with his wife, got out, and started questioning me. He told me I'm a police officer. I said, okay. And he started asking me questions and everything. So I answered the questions. And he asked me, would you like a ride into town? And I said, yeah, I certainly would appreciate it. He gave me a ride into town and told me, he said, you need to stay off the road because there's a lot of people working for that Skyjacker last night. I said, yes, I heard all about it on the radio. That was it.
And that's the type of story that the documentary, the podcast, they're filled with these little, you can't believe that they're true moments. And the fact that, it was the local sheriff that picked up Mac was one of the things that Eli and I, when we first heard the story, were like, this can't be true. But then sure enough, court documents back it up. And in some cases in our documentary, Walter Cronkite backs it up. And so that's really what makes this story so unique and one of the things that inspired us to want to tell it.
When people that are familiar with my family, when they first heard this podcast, they said, no, this is all bullshit. This can't be true. And my nephew told him, he says, it is all documented, all of it. Danny, the guy who wrote the story, he does fact checking. And he's got 100 pounds of documents that I gave him for fact checking. And somebody asked him in St. Louis, they were on the radio, how can you be so sure that what he's telling you is true? Danny said, I do fact checking. 95% of what he says is true. Fact check. And the other 5%, you can pretty much believe that that's true too, if the 95% is true. Boom. Yeah.
So this goes for all three of you. So what do you think the best part of the story is, or your guys' favorite part of the story out of everything you've gathered?
I'll go first. I would say that the part of the story that really grabbed me the most was Mac making the decision to actually hijack the plane. I say that because of the time and place, and because the history of America at the time and skyjacking and security and it being such a thing that nobody knew about and everybody pays attention to DB Cooper, and the idea of DB Cooper doing it, inspiring so many people, Mac included, that to me is the most important part of this at the end of the day.
Mac, what about you? What's your favorite part?
Well, I'll be honestly frank with you. I don't necessarily have a special part, but when DB Cooper pulled this in 1971 November, I was driving down the highway here in Detroit in mid-January and heard it on the radio. And I said, they were talking about it on the radio. They said, all these hijackers, we got to stop them. What can we do to stop them? And the other guy said, you give everybody who buys a ticket $500,000 and it will stop. When I heard that, I laughed like hell and told my partner there that that's a hell of a way to make a score. And get some guns, get an extortion note, get a ticket, get on a plane, get a parachutes, order parachutes, get the money and bail out. What could be easier? Unbeknownst, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry, Matt. I don't really have a favorite part, and I think I don't want to spoil anything for anybody who hasn't seen the film, but I think the part that really sticks out to me as an unbelievable moment is when a man named David Hanley was getting drunk at a local airport bar and decided to derail Mac's hijacking by driving his Cadillac into Mac's plane as it was taxiing for takeoff. I think that was the moment where I was like, this can't possibly be true. And sure enough, it was all of it.
Yeah, it was true. And that was devastating to my plan. I mean, it shot everything holes in my operation. Okay.
So the last question I'll ask you, Mac, is when you see your 1972 self on screen, do you feel like that person is still you today?
No, not really. I was not criminally sophisticated. Call me stupid. Uh, my friends, good friends, betrayed me. These two guys knew what I was going to do in January, and they said nothing for 5 months. And when I'm arrested, or before I got arrested, when I did the job and everything, that's when they came out of the woodwork. I bailed out at 3 o'clock in the morning, and at 9 o'clock in the morning, this one friend was turning my name in to an undercover Detroit sheriff. Robert Krischke was his name. He called the FBI in Detroit, told them, I know who got that plane in St. Louis. That was Martin McNally. And so he gave that to the FBI. They didn't do anything. Monday morning, he called back and he said, why haven't you arrested this McNally guy? He's going to do it again. I'm going to do it again. He already had that information from James Petty and so forth and so on. But yeah, I didn't realize that when you do something, friends are going to drop a dime, betray you, turn you in, especially when there's money on the line. And this one guy got $10,000 from the FBI, and the other guy got immunity and wasn't charged. So
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for making this possible today. And Martin, thank you so much for speaking with me. And I want to give a shout out to Jesse Hobson from Cinedump for making this possible today. So thank you guys again. I really appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Okay, goodbye.
Thank you so much. That was my conversation with film directors Eli Kooris, Joshua Shaffer, and Martin McNally. Thank you for listening. See you on the next one.